Good day, students. Last time, we discussed the different political ideologies, and how these things work. We knew that it serves as a framework of how a government serves its purpose and does its roles. Today, we are going to apply the concepts we have learned, as we tackle our new topic. Have you ever wondered where taxes go? Or why people complain about it so much? Or who pays for the highway that runs past your house? Or why you need a license to drive, to hunt, or to fish, or to become a doctor? Have you ever pondered why you have to be 21 years old to drink alcohol, but only 18 to vote? Or gamble? Sometimes voting is a gamble, actually always. Have you ever wondered if there are limits on when, where, and how the police can search your home, or your car, your locker, or your friend, or your grandma? And do you know why you can stand outside a government office with a sign and a bullhorn complaining about military action that you think is unfair, and the police can't stop you? But you can be fired from your job for doing the exact same thing? Have you ever wondered why the government does the things it does, and it doesn't do other things? That was more than one question, and obviously there isn't a single answer to all of those questions, except in a way, there is. The study of government and politics. What is government? Does government have any forms? A government is a system of order for a nation, state, or another political unit. It is responsible for creating and enforcing the rules of a society, defense, foreign affairs, the economy, and public services. While the responsibilities of all governments are similar, those duties are executed in different ways, depending on the form of government. These forms are essentially determined by the following. First, it can be determined by the number of rulers. Second, rulers in every form of government differs in the way of exercising their powers. And lastly, each forms have their own political ideologies as a guide. Is the current form of government in the country effective? Why, or why not? Now that we know the definition of government, let's elaborate its different forms. First is monarchy. It is a form of government in which a single family rule from generation to generation. The power, or sovereignty, is personified in a single individual. There are two types of monarchy, namely, the absolute monarchy, and the constitutional monarchy. In absolute monarchy, monarchs rule with total unchallenged, and unchecked political and legislative power. In other words, they possessed absolute power, in terms of governance. Meanwhile, constitutional monarchy is a blended form of government, in which a king or queen had a limited power in ruling. In addition, the absolute monarchy is based on the concept of the divine rights of the kings, that became the catalyst in the rise and fall of many ancient and modern kingdoms. On the other hand, constitutional monarchy is a combination with a legislative governing body, such as Parliament. It started with the Hittites, one of the civilizations that existed in ancient Mesopotamia, with their assembly called as Panko, but became a well-known concept after the Glorious Revolution, in the Kingdom of England, in 1688, in which they restricted the power of the king, by implementing the Bill of Rights of 1689. Second, is theocracy. Theocracy came from the Greek word, theokratia, wherein, theo, means, God, and kratia, means, to rule, or a government. Basically, theocracy is a government that recognizes God, or a divine being, as the ultimate authority. Examples are Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the Vatican City, which is ruled by Pope Francis, as the head of state. Third is dictatorship. This is a form of government, characterized by the absolute rule of one person, who holds all political power. Currently, many countries are practicing this form, namely, North Korea with Kim Jong-un, Belarus with Alexander Lukashenko, and Cuba with Raúl Castro, the brother of Fidel Castro, their dictator of 52 years, until his retirement in 2011. Fourth is aristocracy. In this form, it implements the rule of the few best, the morally and intellectually superior, governing the interest of the entire populations. Aristocracy was practiced in some of the greatest civilizations in history, like Greece and Rome, wherein the power is held by the nobility. Fifth is oligarchy. It is a form of government, in which all power resides with a few people, or dominant class or group within the society. This can be families, businessmen, scholars, or military. An example of country that uses this particular form in modern society is Sudan, which is currently ruled by Transitional Military Council, after the coup to depose President Omar al-Bashir in 2019. Sixth is democracy. Democracy, in its literal sense, is the rule by the people. The term is derived from the Greek word, demokratia, demos, which means people, and kratos means rule. It is used to denote the political systems then existing in some Greek city-states, notably Athens, in 5th century BCE. There are two forms of democracy, the direct and representative democracy. Under representative democracy, it also has different types, which are parliamentary system, presidential system, and federal system. Let's take a closer look to these concepts, for us to identify its differences. The power to govern in direct democracy lies in the hands of the people, then being exercised through their representatives. The most prominent example is the Switzerland, in which any law enacted by the nation's legislative branch can be vetoed by the general public. On the other hand, representative democracy is a form founded on the principle of elected official, representing a group of people. It is also known as indirect democracy. The United States, United Kingdom, and Ireland are using this particular type of government. Will a government be following the ideology of communism or anarchy work in our country? Why or why not? Representative democracy have various types. Let us discuss it one by one. First is the parliamentary system. In here, all power is vested in the parliament, which is headed by the prime minister as the head of government. One of the famous example of this is the United Kingdom, in which Queen Elizabeth is known to be the monarch, but holds no power or non-political, because she is only considered as the head of state. Instead, the political power lies to Boris Johnson, their present Prime Minister, and the cabinet he established in Her Majesty's name. Next is presidential system. This type recognizes the president as the highest official and the head of the executive branch. The president is popularly elected by the citizens. Rodrigo Duterte, for an instance, became the president of the Philippines, after a 16 million vote win, in the 2016 presidential elections. The last is, the federal system. This is a type of government wherein power and sovereignty are constitutionally divided, between the national government, and subdivisional governments, such as, states, or provinces. The United States of America is, one of the countries, with existing federal government. It was established after the American Revolution, led by George Washington, winning for the independence of the 13 colonies from Great Britain. Currently, it has 50 states, and the seat of power is in Washington, D.C. Will federalism work in the Philippines? Elaborate your answer. The current administration, headed by President Rodrigo Duterte, pushes for the transition of our present form of government to a federal one. Let's discuss further on what is going to happen in his vision of a federal Philippines. The government from a unitary one, wherein power lies in the central government, will be transformed as the federal government. Under this system, it will be divided into two seats of power, the national government, and the federated, or the regional governments. The national government will retain its three branches, from the 1987 Constitution, which are, the legislative, executive, and judiciary branch, but will change some of its structures, and provisions like, the president and the vice president will be elected as a team, and the term limit will be changed, from 6 years into 4 years only. At the same time, they are eligible for re-election, which is not allowed in our present form. In addition, in order to run for a position in the government, an individual must have a college degree. The country will be divided into 18 federated regions. These territorial states will have a more noteworthy control over raising their incomes, deciding with their own legislations, and selecting own financial and economic models. For each federated regions, it will be headed by a government, which is also composed of three branches. These are the legislative, executive, and judiciary. Under the final draft of consultative committee, the federated regions will have the exclusive powers to demand certain taxes collected by the national government. Let's end today's discussion with this question. In your opinion, what do you think is the best type of government for the Philippines?
Happy learning at home with lessons made easy by Olivarian GoTeach. One proud Olivarian.